Hey, you guys, we have made it to Friday. It is the weekend because it's even about dinner time on Friday. So we are very, very excited to be at this point in our week. So I hope that you guys have a great weekend with your family. But this morning, I was telling David, I was reading in my devotions in Luke, a very, very familiar passage about when the disciples and Jesus were in the boat and the storm comes up and we see Jesus sleeping in the boat and the disciples frantically, trying to bail out, whatever they were doing. They were frantic and they were doing everything that they could to save themselves, to take care of this in their own strength while Jesus slept. And when they finally got to him and they finally woke him up, it took him, just to speak, and the entire thing went away. And I was thinking so much about if the disciples had known Jesus well enough at that point to recognize that he had the power in one word to calm that sea and to change their circumstance, it would have been a big difference in the way that they were reacting to the storm.
Absolutely.
That frantic insecurity, it would have just all gone away. And that always, as I'm thinking along those lines, I tend to think very practically. And I realized that in our own relationships, so often we talk about how we love someone. And specifically, we're going to talk specifically about your spouse today. But we talk about how you love someone, but you act as if you don't really trust them and you don't really know them well enough. The disciples, you see them just on this shaky ground, the shaky boat, but they were just trying to do everything, and it was frantic. And I thought how often I've gotten that way. When you feel out of control, you start acting out of control, I think. And there's so many ways that trust with your spouse in particular factors into leveling all of that out. And I just wanted to talk to David, or with David, to you guys about that today a little bit. So David, what are, I one of the first things that I thought of was how often, practically, if you would ask me ever, if you would ask you ever, we trust each other. And yet the way that we act sometimes loosens that dirt, kind of makes the ground not as steady. Why do you think that happens?
Well, I think that sometimes there's an event that happens and there's an entire lead up to that has really shaken you, shaken you.
Couldn't let
you
that
know
go.
what I mean. And it's not an isolated thing, right? It's something that you've had a rough day, or you just didn't sleep well the night before, or whatever was leading into it. You are easier to knock off than you would normally be, and so that would play into it as well as what's leading into it, and you may not even realize what kind of impact that's having on you until there's been an explosion of some kind or some sort of a major event has happened.
Well, and one thing that I've noticed through the years, because we've been married now for 22 years, and have...
I knew that.
Exactly. He could probably tell you our anniversary, no problem. Yeah. But we've been married for 22 years, and through that time, well, and let me just make this disclaimer, it's been a glorious 22 years. We are, however, both sinners, and we both stumble, and we both make mistakes. And so through that time, I have found there have been several little parentheses where we've gotten sideways. And so often when there was more friction, or things just weren't as smooth and as close and as natural as they normally are, after we work through it, it almost always has come down to some kind of a situation of trust. And a lot of times I think, I know that one party may not even know that they have dinged the trust of the other party. Trust is not just built, lost by infidelity or something big like that. Yeah. There are a million little ways that trust can be broken. And that's what I really want to have you key in and guard about. with his permission, which he begrudgingly gave, I want to share one very, very practical way that this showed up. And it's very indicative of how on two very different pages we were. This was several years ago, and at the time, there were a lot of stressors. There was a lot of activity, a lot of pressure just going on in general.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of off kilter anyway. And I don't know about you, but when I get off kilter, a lot of times, just like those disciples, rather than resting in Jesus's love for me and recognizing that he is the one that I can get my soul rest from, come into me and I will give you rest. I strive and I strive and I strive. And so during this time, I was striving and I was trying to fix everything and put my hands on everything. And one of the things that this impacted that I didn't think one thing of was I apparently became an incredibly nervous passenger. And he used to say stuff about
passenger like in a car.
Yes. So when we were driving, he would say stuff and I was like, what in the world? Why are you, I was just holding on. This isn't anything other than me if my arm was tired. I wanted to reach up and grab it. But it really communicated to David that I didn't trust him. I didn't see it that way. That was not what was actually in my heart. It wasn't. But I was very much communicating that. And it wasn't until a little while later, like maybe a long while later, that we actually communicated well enough with each other that I recognized what was going on during that time. Yeah. So from your perspective, because I noted we're on parallel paths there. I've taught math a lot. Parallel paths. So what was, I kind of laid out where I was, what was going on with you and how we got sideways like that. And because it really, truly dinged trust. And it not only made him feel like I didn't trust him, but then I kind of felt like, why would you put this emotion on me of not trusting you when clearly I do? And so we're just completely sideways and not communicating to get beyond that.
Well, I think, as you mentioned, it was kind of a tough time, just in general. And I think in one of the previous episodes, I think I kind of went through, Ephesians 5 and 6, and rather than Paul giving you this entire list, when this happens, do this, and when this happens, do this, when this happens, do this, when this happens, he just gave like one word. And for the woman, it's like, submit to your husbands. And your husband. And I think that's misunderstood in a lot of ways. I mean, I do believe that it does mean that the man is a leader in the home. Don't misunderstand me. But I think another good way to look at that is believe in your husbands.
Yeah.
And a husband needs to know that their wife actually believes in them and trusts them. And that's a big, huge deal. So when you are going through a circumstance where maybe you feel a little insecure or there's something going on in your life that is just kind of dinging your confidence a little bit, and something as small as reaching for the bar when you are driving can really make a huge impact on you. And you magnify that. Mm-hmm. And so as a husband, what you need more than anything, as Paul said, what you need more than anything in the world is for your wife to believe in you, for her to trust you, for her to be willing to follow you, allow you to lead.
Yeah.
And when they don't, it's hard.
Yeah.
And I think that you can flip that, obviously. With the wife, what she needs more than anything else is for the husband to love her. And if she doesn't feel like she's being loved, it's going to cause all kinds of problems. And again, Paul could have reached out and he could have drawn from just an entire huge list of things.
Yeah.
but yet he chose one word.
Yeah. Well, and like you were talking about with the husband needing the wife to believe and support and submit to him, and the wife needing to feel loved. And one of the things that you'll always find, I think, is insecurity just makes you desperate. You're clinging to anything. You're controlling everything. It's just like those disciples in that boat. They were insecure. They were in danger. Things weren't right, and they were trying to fix it all, and they were so frantic. And as ladies, I think we often get so frantic trying to fix everything, but what we're communicating is that we don't trust, we're not willing to come up, we don't believe in him and what he's doing. And these things start off so small. And so for today, we really just wanted to encourage you to not let those small things go. Communicate with one another. Listen closely to what is being said, because honestly, there were things that he would say to try to help me understand. And until I got that key of believing in him and how I'm communicating, whether I trust him or not, I couldn't understand what he was saying. And I want you guys to get there so much faster than we did. So that's kind of our thought for today. And I hope that you spend all weekend showing one another how much you trust each other, believe in one another, and love each other.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.